Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here, and I'm excited to be back for another lesson in summer school. My lesson today is going to focus on rainbow cards, which should come as no surprise to anyone. I love everything rainbow. I just love the bright, colorful looks that you can create with different rainbow patterns. And in today's lesson, I wanted to show you a very easy way to create a rainbow design using cardstock. Cardstock is something a lot of us have in our stash, and it is a little time consuming to do the technique I'm going to do, but it's so worth it in the end to be able to create some custom pattern paper. So I'm starting off with this big roll of adhesive here, and I really love this stuff because it's very thin and it's sized nice and big so that you can easily add an A2 size card base right to the whole entire strip of the adhesive. So I just like to add my cardstock panel right to the adhesive strip, and then I just use a pair of scissors and I trim around the edge just to get that little extra bit off of there so that I'm not kind of having it stick to my arm as I'm working. Once I have that fully cut off, I remove the backing sheet since this is double-sided, and I'm left with some really sticky adhesive on this cardstock panel. And rather than expose all of the adhesive at once, I like to just fold back the backing sheet as I work, and as I get towards the middle and the bottom, I will eventually remove that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to adhere all of these little cardstock strips. So I have a bunch of them cut out from various colors of cardstock that are going to form a rainbow design, and I cut them at both 1/4 inch and 1/8 of an inch wide. And I'm not really being particular about what size I'm using, but I am making sure to go in rainbow order as I add these to the panel. Now for this one here, what I'm doing is I'm adding them in rainbow order, and then I'm reversing that order as I go to the next area. And that's how I'm going to create this pattern. So the very first one I showed you that I already did is just rainbow order repeated, whereas this one here I do rainbow order, then reverse it, do rainbow order again, and then reverse it, and continue that all the way down the entire panel. And you'll be able to see once I finish this one here and compare the two side by side, what a different variation you can get just by kind of changing up the color order. So once I have it all finished, you can see I have all of these strips kind of hanging over the panel. So I'm just going to use my scissors first and trim off one side of all of these pieces here. And then I like to use my paper trimmer to kind of get everything nicely trimmed along each edge. Once I have that done, I have this entire panel that has this fun rainbow design that we created completely with cardstock. And then like I mentioned earlier, when I put these two side by side, you can really see the variation we were able to achieve just by changing up what colors we put in what order. So you can see we have two panels done here, and for both of these I put all of the strips at a diagonal, and this is just because it's very forgiving. If you happen to get any of the strips not perfectly straight, the diagonal really helps to kind of cover that up and hide it. Now for the third one, I decided to do this one straight across, so once again I added the adhesive to an A2 size card panel, and I'm adding all of my strips on here once again in rainbow order. For this one here, I decided to do a little bit of a pattern with the width of the strips that I have, so I did all the small ones in one rainbow first, then I used the larger ones in another rainbow, and kind of just repeated that process all the way down this entire panel. And then once I have them all on here, once again, I'm going to trim off some of the extra with my scissors, and then I'm going to use my paper trimmer to really finish that off and get a really nice smooth edge on each side. And then once I have that done, we have 3 different panels. They all have this beautiful rainbow design. It's just really fun and colorful, and we have a different variation on each, either by the way the strips are added or by the colors that we used. So now I'm going to turn each of these into a card. So the first one here, I've taken a white cardstock panel that measures 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I have cut out a circle opening from the center of that panel, and I'm going to layer it over top of one of the rainbow pieces. So I just trimmed that rainbow panel down, and then I added some score tape to the front of it, and now I'm adding it right to the back of this panel here, and that's going to allow that fun rainbow stripe design to peek through that window opening. Now I'm going to take this butterfly image from the Fluttering Friends stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it onto white cardstock with black ink. And the plan here is to die cut this and add it to the card with no color on it. I really love the look of having all of that rainbow color with the contrast of the black and white image added beside it. I took a sentiment stamp from that same stamp set and I stamped it onto a strip of black cardstock, and I'm just stamping that with Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and then I'm covering it with white embossing powder. I heat set that with my heat tool, and then I trimmed it down to fit onto the card front. I really loved the direction that the rainbow stripes were going and thought it would look cool to have the sentiment strip going in the same direction. So I added that directly onto the card base, and then I added my little butterfly image with some foam adhesive. To complete the card, I added some foam adhesive to the back of the entire panel, and now I'm adding it to a top folding limelight card base that measures 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 inches. Now I just wanted to quickly share how I created 2 more additional cards with some of these backgrounds that I created with the rainbow stripes. So for this one I used the hearts in a row horizontal, and I cut these directly out of this piece. I love that the stripes are going completely straight across, so I was able to use some of the smaller area where I have the thinner stripes and get a lot of color within those hearts. So I just ran that through my die cutting machine and cut out 3 of the hearts. I added them to a white cardstock panel with some foam adhesive, and then I stamped a sentiment underneath in black ink. I finished that one off by adding it to a pink card base. Now for this last one here, I decided to die cut this word hello from the center of the panel. Now my intention was to die cut this and get 2 cards by having the negative space on the panel as well as the positive letter pieces on a separate card. But because I had 2 really thick layers of cardstock, I had a difficult time getting the die to cut all the way through. So what I ended up doing was leaving the letters inside of that negative piece and adhering the whole entire panel to a white cardstock piece that was cut slightly larger, and then I added that entire thing to a limelight card base. I finished it off by adding a sentiment onto a black cardstock strip, once again embossed with white embossing powder, and then I added that right over top of the die cut hello word with some foam adhesive. And I actually really love how this turned out. I love that we have the detail of both the negative and the positive together, but you can see that the hello word is die cut. So here's a look at all 3 cards that we created with these pieces of rainbow pattern paper we created with cardstock. 2 of them use smaller sections of the panel, so we still have more that we can use on additional cards. And then we have the hello card that uses almost an entire panel. So I hope you enjoyed this video and got some ideas for ways that you can create your own custom rainbow pattern paper. Thank you so much for joining me in the video, and make sure to check out the video description as well as the coordinating blog post for today for a chance to win some prizes by taking part in today's homework assignment. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you tomorrow for more summer school fun.